Amir, thank you so much for joining us on this special day, Purple Light Up, which is, as you know, a mark of respect to International Day of Persons with Disabilities. I'm so excited to see you again. We met some years ago and I am just so impressed with the work that you and your colleagues are doing at Qaderoon and across the kingdom, and a real beacon of best practice within the Middle East. Hello, welcome, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for inviting us, myself, on this interview, and also Qaderoon to participate and partner with Purple Space on your Purple Light Up campaign. We're very excited about it, and I think, you know, over the past few weeks, we've been working very hard to bring this to fruition. So yeah, we're ready to go. It's exciting.
Wonderful, really, really wonderful. So I wonder if in our time together, you could amplify what Qaderoon stands for, you know, where it came about from, your core objectives, things that you've been doing.
Well, if you remember, Kate, when we met was 6 years ago, and at that time when we were launching Qaderoon, it didn't have a name at that time. It was purely just an employer network to help people with disability get included and employed as in private companies, in public companies, in non-profit companies or organizations. And we created a steering committee on that night. It was during Ramadan, so we were keeping very late hours, so to speak. So I think by midnight we created the steering committee, and I was volunteered by everybody to chair that steering committee, and I've been at the head of this for the last 6 years. And what we did is we created the name Qaderoon, and Qaderoon is an Arabic word that means we are able, or they are able. So from the point of view is that people with disability are able to work, and we as employers are able to hire them and include them in our workforce. And so the focus of Qaderoon is always on ability, and as we all say, people with disability. So the person comes first and the disability comes next. And so we focus on the person, that person's his or her ability in terms of the skills that they bring to the workforce and how they work with it. And then later on, when you come to address the disability, you address it from the point of view of accommodation. How are you going to accommodate that disability, whether it's physical, hearing impairment, sight impairment, or even any of the mental disabilities such as autism or Down syndrome.
Wonderful. And you've done so much in the last 6 years. I mean, what are you particularly pleased about in terms of the engagement of employers on this agenda?
I think that the most important achievement that we have done over the last 6 years, and we were recognized for that achievement by being invited to be members of the International Labour Organization Global Disability Forum, which we are very proud to have been invited there. I think the biggest achievement is creating awareness and changing the mindset of people. The traditional thinking is that people with disability are, you know, poor fellows, they need our sympathy, or on the other side of the spectrum, that they are heroes because they have been able to overcome their disability and achieve feats. So they, you know, we started educating people that people with disability don't want your sympathy and don't want your adoration as heroes. They want you to treat them as normal people with normal abilities, normal aspirations. Yes, they do have disability, but the disability is not handicapping them, but rather is part of who they are and what they have. And as long as you can manage the accommodation to that disability, they will be successful. The second most important achievement that we have been able to create, which is what is the value proposition that we are putting on the table. The value proposition is that people with disability can offer a lot. They are productive, they're committed, and then there is mutual benefit that they will benefit as employees, but also the employer will benefit as well from higher productivity and also from changing the whole atmosphere of the business environment that they have. By having people with disability being part of the teams, it actually brings the whole team up in terms of happier workers, people who are working with a purpose rather than giving somebody a special accommodation, which is not what we like, especially sheltered employment. We don't accept it. Phantom employment, we don't accept it. The third one is the compliance issues, which is the compliance with universal accessibility. And we created a program called Mu'ama, which is part of the Ministry of Labor here in Saudi Arabia. It's a certificate that is issued to companies that have complied with the 8 elements and criteria that is under the Disability Compliance Index. And it's something that a lot of companies are very proud to have because they show their social responsibility in a good way.
It's wonderful. Amir, we have such short time together, and it's so good to be in the same virtual room as you. As we know, we've worked and lived in the most extraordinary year, and yet Purple Light Up is a celebration, and we're seeing lots of disabled people and employers to really fanfare the talent across the world. I suppose one very short last question from me is what tip would you offer an employer who is just starting on their journey in this space?
Okay, I think one has to mention COVID-19 and the pandemic because a lot of people have lost their jobs. From many employers have to let a lot of their employees go. Among them were people with disability. I think that what one kind of last thought to leave you with is that technology can play a major part in re-empowering and to employ people with disability from being able to work from home. So the workplace does not have to be changed, and they can contribute quite a bit through that. So I think that the whole world is through this Purple Light Up campaign will become aware of what we are doing. There is no rocket science about this. It's basically basic human treatment of each other as equal people. So any employer should come in with the mind of being an equal employment choice.
Wonderful.
With that perspective.
Amir, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, your support, and your leadership. Your leadership is extraordinary. So a huge thank you from me and many employees with disabilities, employers across the world. A massive thank you. We wish you every success. We're looking forward to connecting with you and Qaderoon over the next year and partnering with you even further and deepening our relationship. But for the moment, thank you so much for your time and your energy and your commitment, and have a great day. 3rd of December, Purple Light Up. And I love the ribbon. The ribbon is fantastic.
Thank
Yay.
You. It has the Q for Qaderoon.
It's wonderful.
Thank you so much, and God bless you. And yes, definitely, we're here to partner with you over the next year. We have a lot of work to do, and we're ready to do it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Take good care.
Bye-bye.
في موازاة الجهود الجبارة التي تبذلها حكومة المملكة العربية السعودية لدعم الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة، كان لابد من إيجاد إطار لتمكين هؤلاء الأشخاص وتوفير الفرص الوظيفية المناسبة لهم ودمجهم في المجتمع. حيث من أبرز الأحداث التي شهدتها شبكة قادرون في العام 2014 هي النقلة الفريدة في خدمة أصحاب الأعمال والإعاقة.
شبكة قادرون هي عبارة عن شبكة تضم أصحاب الأعمال من شركات ومؤسسات وجهات حتى غير ربحية وجهات حكومية، وأسسناها بالتعاون مع وزارة العمل في 2014، أي قبل حوالي 6 سنوات.
من أهداف شبكة قادرون أنه نعمل لينك بين الشركات الخاصة والأشخاص ذو الإعاقة عشان الفئتين يستفيدوا.
الهدف منها هي مساعدة الأشخاص ذو الإعاقة في التوظيف وفي الدمج في بيئة العمل في هذه الشركات أو المنظمات.
طبعا شبكة قادرون ماشية بنفس الأهداف اللي توضحت في رؤية 2030 في المملكة.
فكرنا في الاسم ووجدنا أنه الأنسب أنه نسمي هذه الشبكة شبكة قادرون، ولأنه الأشخاص ذو الإعاقة قادرون على العمل ونحن أصحاب العمل قادرون على توظيفهم.
من أبرز ما تقدمه قادرون دعم المنشأة لتطبيق معايير شهادة موائمة للحصول على الشهادة، وهي شهادة اختيارية تمنح لتمكين المنشآت الراغبة بتطوير بيئات أعمالها لتكون أكثر شمولية ومساندة للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة.
بالنسبة للشركات اللي تريد الحصول على شهادة موائمة، لابد من مجموعة من الخدمات أو مجموعة من البرامج التي تقدمها الشركة عشان تقدر تحصل على هذه الشهادة، مثل ورش عمل معرفية، مثل توظيف عدد من الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة، مثل بعض البرامج التوعوية سواء داخليا داخل الشركة أو خارج الشركة.
الشهادة هذه تعتمد على معايير معينة، منها المكان نفسه وهل هو موائم للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة أم لا، بالنسبة للقوانين والتشريعات والإرشادات حقت الموارد البشرية والشركة، هل هي بتساعد بتحقيق الحقوق التي يعني ينظر إليها الموظفين ذوي الإعاقة أم لا.
إن من الجلي أن قادرون هي منظمة قائمة على رأس العديد من الكوادر التي اجتهدت في سبيل هذه المنشأة وهذه الأهداف السامية.
الرسالة والرؤية اللي تسعى لها قادرون إن هي يكون لها بصمة في سوق العمل السعودي في دعم الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة، بحيث إن هم يكونوا أشخاص فعالين في بيئات موائمة في قطاعات الأعمال ومشمولين مثل الموظفين الموجودين حاليا في سوق قطاعات الأعمال. حقيقي رؤية 2030 اللي بتسعى جاهد المملكة إنه هي تطبقها بأفضل المعايير بتدعم الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة، ونصت نصوص صريحة في الرؤية على دعم الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة بحيث إنه هي تكون في بيئة شاملة وموائمة للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة، وإحنا بإذن الله إنه إحنا نكون الشبكة اللي تدعم هذا الهدف، الشبكة اللي تقوم بنجاح رؤيتها ورسالتها من خلال هذا الهدف بإذن الله.
لقد آلت قادرون على نفسها أن تواصل العمل الجاد والسعي بكل الطرق المتاحة لتحقيق أهدافها المتمثلة بدعم الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة وتوفير كل الظروف الملائمة لتوظيفهم والحفاظ عليهم من خلال بيئة عمل شاملة وسياسات مساندة، لنتمكن من القول معا قادرون.
معا قادرون.
معا قادرون.
معا قادرون.
معا قادرون.
The Purple Light Up initiative was something that was brought to our attention by an organization in the UK called Purple Space. And what they have done is that they have taken the UN recognized day to celebrate and recognize persons with disability, which is the 3rd of December. And they have adopted the color purple to celebrate and recognize this community and this day. And what they have done is that they have launched or are going to launch a 24-hour broadcast on 3rd of December, which will begin in Australia and New Zealand and work its way across the world, ending in Los Angeles, I believe. And it will go through many different countries throughout the world and speak to organizations within each country about the efforts that are being made to support the persons with disability community in those countries. Qaderoon is very proud and very privileged to be a part of this initiative, and we look forward to participating in this 24-hour broadcast to celebrate and bring recognition to persons with disability, not just in Saudi Arabia, but also around the world. And we hope that many people will tune in and see the initiatives that are being done throughout the world and how each organization can learn from others. At the end of the day, the goal, what we want, all of this effort and energy and focus is to help this community. And so if we can share ideas about how to do that better, we are happy to both share what we have and learn from others at the same time to help this initiative as much as we can. So Qaderoon is very happy to be part of the Purple Light Up. So I hope as many people register as they can.
انطلاقا من رؤية المملكة 2030 نجحت شبكة قادرون لأصحاب الأعمال والإعاقة في توفير كل الدعم للشركات الراغبة في توظيف هؤلاء من خلال التوعية بالفوائد المتبادلة لدمج الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة في القوى العاملة.
مع رؤية المملكة 2030 اختلف الوضع تماما، من ناحية أنه صار الآن تركيز على هذه الفئة، من ناحية ورش العمل، الندوات، الإعلانات، اندماج الفئة هذه في المجتمع. صارت التحديات السابقة اللي كانت أو الفكرة الغير واضحة لذوي الإعاقة توضحت الآن أكثر.
وتقديم الإرشادات والتدريب وأفضل الممارسات لأصحاب الأعمال والأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة. عبر هذه الجولة نطلع على آلية عمل الصم والبكم والجدية التي يظهرونها في تنفيذ المهام الموكلة إليهم.
هناك توجه من الدولة متمثلة في وزارة الشؤون الاجتماعية في مكتب العمل للحصول على شهادة موائمة من خلال توظيف هذه الفئة الغالية على قلوبنا. قمنا بتنفيذ الخطة المتبعة في توظيف هؤلاء الكوادر من خلال تأهيل وتدريب الموظفين في الشركة على كيفية التعامل مع موظفي ذوي الإعاقة من خلال لغة الإشارات وكيفية التعامل معهم بالمهارات أثناء تواجدهم في مقر الشركة، إضافة إلى توفير جميع الإجراءات التيسيرية والترتيبات التيسيرية التي تسهل مهمة العمل وتوفير بيئة العمل المناسبة ليكونوا منتجين وفعالين في هذه الشركة.
الفئة هذه عزيزة علينا وفئة من تجربة، فئة منتجة وملهمة في نفس الوقت. نوجه لهم نقول لهم شكرا جزيلا، وبالنسبة للمجتمع ضروري أنه يتثقفوا في موضوع ذوي الإعاقة،
حيث إن الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة طوروا من أنفسهم ووظفوا طاقاتهم وتحدوا واقعهم للوصول إلى النجاح.
معا قادرون،
معا قادرون،
معا قادرون.
I would like to welcome Dr. Heidi Al-Askari and Dr. Maha Jafali. And I'm not a doctor, so I feel overwhelmed in the presence of these fantastic personalities. I've known both ladies for a very long time, and I know how passionate they are in their pursuit for the rights of people with disability, from the time that they are born till they grow old and they are become job seekers. And this is where Qaderoon, which I head, comes in and participates. So we are all working together in tandem with each other. I would like to ask each one to introduce themselves, and then we can move on to the subjects. So Dr. Heidi, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khashoggi. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with this esteemed panel of not only amazing professionals, but incredibly dear and beloved friends. We've worked together for many years throughout our journey. My name is Heidi Al-Askari. By profession, I'm a speech-language pathologist, and I have had the privilege and honor to serve and develop supports and accommodations for persons with disabilities throughout my career in a multitude of various settings. So I have worked at university level teaching speech-language pathologists. I've also worked in the domain of disability research at the King Salman Center for Disability Research. From there, I moved on and worked very closely with Mr. Ahmed Khashoggi, establishing a program for the employment of persons with disabilities in the private sector within Saudi Arabia. And then from there, currently I am the CEO of Special Olympics Saudi Arabia. So it's an honor and pleasure to be here.
It's an honor to have you. Thank you very much. Dr. Maha?
Well, hello everybody. Thank you for having me, Amar and Heidi. And I've been in the field of intellectual disabilities for 35 years. We just celebrated 35 years of success stories.
Congratulations.
And thank you. We've been employing intellectually disabled persons with intellectual disabilities since 1997. So this is one aim and one advocacy. I really advocate for employment for persons with disabilities. And I also established the Health Center, which is a program, it's a holistic approach for children from birth up to adulthood. And it consists of 3 different programs: early intervention 0 to 3, and then the day program 4 to 18, and then 18 and above. And that's including employment and recreation, because I have a big belief that employment alone does not satisfy. We need to add recreational aspect to it, and socialization. And with COVID, unfortunately, the socialization became very tough. I also served with Amr and Heidi on many different governmental initiatives, and I hold many different positions in different international and national governance of programs. So that's me in a nutshell.
Very good. Thank you, Maha. Just by way of introduction, I'm Amr Khashoggi, chairman of Qaderoon Network for Business and Disability. We were established in 2014, and our aim is to really pick up where Maha, for example, her help center brings people to the employment age, and then people don't know what to do with them. And this is where we step in by working with employers and creating the right kind of work environment and really an atmosphere of inclusion of people with disability, and we focus on their abilities. And the name of our organization is Qaderoon, which is an Arabic word that means we are able. And so they are able to work, and we are able to employ them. Now, this program that we partnered Qaderoon with Purple Space, which is a non-profit organization based in the UK, and they have picked up the color purple, which signifies people with disability today, and it has become internationally recognized. And they created this campaign, which will be broadcast on the December 3rd as Purple Light Up. And it starts in New Zealand and ends in Los Angeles over a period of 24 hours. And there are segments from each continent and each country within those continents. And we are, as Saudi Arabia, we are given that 1 hour. And so this panel will be broadcast at that time on December 3rd between 9 and 10 a.m. So really the purpose of that, as the purpose of all our activities over the years that we have worked together, Heidi and Maha, is to create awareness that the people with disability are not to be subject to sympathy, nor are they to be treated as heroes. They are people with different abilities, and because of their disability, we just create whatever accommodation to address those disabilities. So I would like to maybe start with you, Heidi, and what is happening in Saudi Arabia today with regard to the Special Olympics and people with disability getting involved in sports and such activities.
Thank you again, Ahmed. Of course, it's a very exciting time in Saudi Arabia today. After the introduction of Vision 2030, as many people following the Saudi ecosystem and the changes that have happened over the past few years, it has been immense in a very short period of time, and it's truly transformational. Huge shifts in a lot of arenas. One of those sectors and arenas is the sports sector. The sports sector overall has seen a huge transformation, a huge amount of attention. Just within the last year, the Ministry of Sports was announced as a ministry proper versus a commission in the past. So the whole ecosystem in and of itself is being built almost from the bottom up. And we are very fortunate for the timing that Special Olympics came onto the floor. And we actually have a lot, we owe a lot of thanks to Dr. Maha Jafali for really giving us sort of the flag to say this is a really important program. It serves persons with intellectual disabilities in a way that uses, if you will, sports as a Trojan horse to open up doors to a lot of other very critical components, which I'll just briefly touch on. But Special Olympics, we have become a federation. In 2019, we were at the Summer World Games, which was an amazing showing for Special Olympics Saudi Arabia. We went with 21 female athletes and 29 male athletes. They participated in 9 various sports, and they came back with 40 medals, which was a bit of a, it's sort of, it was like out of left field a little bit. Nobody really knew what Special Olympics was, and to have a full team go away and have such success and do such an amazing job, not only on the field of sports, but we saw inspirational stories because it was in Abu Dhabi. We were very fortunate that the families were able to come. There was full community support for the athletes who went. So whether it was the organizations that trained, such as the Help Center and other centers that helped within the Eastern Province to help us train the athletes to go, their families being their brothers, sisters, parents, uncles, social media, etc. There was so much going on that it really brought a highlight to not only sports as a platform, but to having a lens and looking at individuals with intellectual disabilities as inspiration, as people who have abilities, people who have various personalities, that we saw in the interviews with our athletes, various characteristics that really made them what they truly are, humans with their own personalities and autonomy, which is the way they should be looked at and treated. So, you know, Special Olympics, in the long run, if they're all activated, we offer the opportunity to participate in over 40 Olympic sports, various different types. So we work very closely with our federations here to activate those sports. Currently, we have 7 activated within Saudi Arabia, and we're working towards increasing that number over the next 2 years. Interestingly enough, we have the summer sports and the winter sports, and our boys qualified to go for the winter sports and floorball that will be held in Russia upcoming in 2021-22. So we're very excited about that. But more importantly for me, from a very functional aspect, is that there's the sports program, but we also have the inclusive health program, we have the leadership program, we have the family and volunteer program, we have the young athlete program, and all of those touch on a lot of very important life aspects that provide opportunities and learning opportunities for our athletes to develop the skills they need for gainful employment, for very healthy, inclusive, you know, within the social community, inclusive full lives in the future.
Excellent. I would like to ask you sort of a question that also I would like to also revert it to Maha to answer as well. The role of families, because I know that in Qaderoon, for example, a lot of families, sometimes they are ashamed of the members of their families who have disabilities, and they are overprotective. They don't want them to go to work. So when it comes to, let's say, Special Olympics, and then Maha, maybe you can also address that question. The role of the families, how is it as it is today? I know what it was like before, but for example, are they participating? Are they supportive? And so maybe Heidi, you can address that, and then we go to Maha and hear her on that point as well.
So from my experience and in history, and I think, you know, even if you expand this outside of disability per se, when you're working with young individuals, whether they're children, teenagers, or adults, we all know that the role of family is extremely important. To have families that are supportive, you know, enlightened, understand what's going on in the environments, and provide the appropriate platforms for children to be able to explore in a safe environment and a place where they can go back, test the waters, come back to a safe, trusted entity. We all know that. Any of us who's a parent understands how critical that is. When we have children or individuals with disabilities, that becomes magnified even more because of the multiple challenges and you know, it can play out in multiple ways. There's a lot of psychological involvement sometimes where parents have difficulty coping with the situation. And then you have parents who are extremely overprotective and very worried about their children or their loved ones taking any steps in any direction. And you have all of the gray in between. So you have all of those extremes. However, you know, I'll summarize my point in saying that every person that I've ever seen that has been extremely successful, irrespective of the lack or presence of other services around them, have always had at least one caregiver, whether it was a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, a caregiver who was extremely supportive there for them and critical in terms of supporting their development.
Thank you. Maha, I would like you to address this question in 2 ways. One is with regard to the families of the children that you take care of in Help Center, and then maybe you can tell us the story of how your own family got into setting up Help Center. I know there is a wonderful story behind that, but I won't say it. I'll let you say it.
Yeah, let me just point out, we're very lucky we live in Saudi Arabia, and we represent, all 3 of us represent Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabian culture is an amazing culture. It's an extended family, which unfortunately around the world they've lost that. So from my experience over the last 35 years is I've noticed, and from my own family, and each one of us can say that, we never actually lived only with mama and papa. We live with grandma, we live with grandpa, we live with uncles, we live with sisters, we live with the best friend of my mother and the best friend of my father, you know. And so we are very lucky as a culture, and we still maintain it, which is very unique to Saudi Arabia. We still maintain that family culture. So where it comes to disability, and when the young parents or an older couple get a child, or a baby with Down syndrome or cerebral palsy or any other disability, the whole family comes through. Now, this can become a jeopardy as well, because the family is actually involving themselves way too much. So our role, my role through the years, and what I've learned through my experience, and that no book taught me, it's just experience, is you have to actually look at the family, see are they overreactive or underreactive. If they're overreactive, you have to kind of calm them down and make one caretaker decide what to do for the child or the parents, if it's the primary caretaker. Many of the times we see, and especially now, the dynamics of Saudi Arabia have changed. Females going to work. So that means mummies are going to work. So who's taking care of the babies and the children is grandma. She's back in the picture, whether paternal or maternal. So now we've developed those programs in the Help Center just geared at aunties and uncles, because we always call them maternal, paternal, or grandmas and grandpas, and that includes in-laws. So that's also a different dynamic, which you have to get that you work. The child is the nucleus, and you build this whole kind of atmosphere around the child. If the family is happy, the child is nourished. Coming back to your point where in the working force, are we still embarrassed by them? In fact, I have amazing success stories where the child who's over 18 now, let's say Ahmed, he is the primary caretaker of his widowed mother. And he takes care, because he has a steady job, he goes from 9, he works 6 hours a day. He's actually the primary caretaker of the family because he's the eldest and all the rest of the family is young. I have another child who's now 28. He lives in Egypt now with his mother, and he's taking full care of his mother. And that's because we trained them and we trained the parents. It's all about us, the caregivers. We're the caregivers to the caregivers. And it's all about us, how we give it to them. I have to say, it's not anymore an embarrassment. Nobody, very rarely do I see a parent who's embarrassed. They're scared. They're scared stiff, but they're not embarrassed by their kids. They actually take them everywhere. You see them now in the malls, you see them in the streets, you see them in Special Olympics, you see them in arts, you see them flying, you see them on the planes, you see them on Saudi Airlines. I mean, you see them everywhere. So that means our culture has adapted. You have the anomaly of 1 or 2 or 10 maybe, yes, like the rest of the world. But we're actually a very loving nation and we love our kids. It's the fear that we don't know that's what makes us a bit edgy and not knowing what to do with them. So that's my take on parents being scared or the extended family. As for the Help Center, well, the story, in my family, we have no disabilities. It started, my mom used to see young children living in Beirut who would come over to our house and see my father in his tow and my mother in her tow, and they would think Mama, Papa, because they were living in a sheltered home. When I came back from Saudi Arabia, I worked for a pediatrician here, Dr. Faida, and that's when I had my first 2 clients, and I always worked for pro bono, and the parents actually were the light to push me forwards, and it was never me. It was all about the parents. The parents are actually who came to me and asked me, please, can you give them a bit more and a bit more? And then I met my best friend now, Hannah, and then we met Irene, and we started a small house. My father gave us the funding. We were zero knowledge in finances and administration. That's why I went back and took my hospital management courses and got my PhD in that. But we started out of nothing. I had 4 volunteers. We were just working from our hearts. Saudi Arabia did not yet then acknowledge women working, and it did not acknowledge disability. So I felt that I'm at par with them. I mean, I'm fighting for women's rights and for disability rights. And now both of them are flourishing. I mean, and that's in a very short time. 35 years is a very short time to come to that big, so. And the health center just 5,500 families down the road now. So,
yeah, it's a really a great story. I know I followed it up for a few years now, and I'm still waiting for that invitation to participate in one of your races.
Actually, we have the marathon that's coming up.
Okay.
2K.
Count me
2K.
in. Count me in.
2K. And we were just discussing it. So yeah, hala fikum.
Okay, count me in.
Virtual this year.
I want to comment on what you were saying about Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia has been going through a tremendous transformation in the last few years, and we have in our Vision 2030 a special mention by the King and the Crown Prince with regards to ensuring the rights of the people with disability for work, for inclusion, for all kinds of rights. And I would like to address, to hear from you on how do you see the role of the government in supporting the development of the inclusive environment for people with disability. So, Dr. Heidi, to you.
So we know from a lot of my personal work and the work that we see around the world, government plays a critical role in terms of developing supports and accommodations and impactful programs for persons with disabilities. What people fail to maybe really truly appreciate is the amount of time and effort that goes into supporting individuals with disabilities. Not everybody. I don't want to create this idea that all disabilities are equal as well. We have individuals with disabilities who need very minimal support. They just need a chance. They just need somebody to open the door, and once you do that, they have everything that they need to be able to participate and give back and be impactful. But on the other end of that, and because we're looking at a spectrum, we also have individuals who need immense support, one-on-one attention from multiple aspects of their life in terms of training, support, providing accommodations and adaptations. And when you start to look at that, that becomes overwhelming for private sector and sometimes civil sectors to take on their own. They do need, whether it's subsidies in some cases, legislation is absolutely critical. Those anti-discrimination legislations, that's that key that I talked about, just open the door. So that legislation is absolutely paramount. We cannot just assume, even when we live in a community that is very family-oriented and very open and very socially connected, we have to have those protective layers in there that allow equity and equal opportunities for everybody to be able to access various aspects of life, particularly employment. So, I would say if you just looked at it from that one aspect, legislation, protecting rights, ensuring anti-discrimination, and ensuring, looking at what are the accommodations and adaptation needs that are needed, and what are the gaps? What can society, whether private, civil societies, what can they offer? And then the role of government is filling those gaps to ensure that there's zero excuse for being able to achieve that inclusion of persons with disabilities. So yes, they're absolutely critical because they are the force of law. They are the entity that have that ability to come in and say, well, we can disagree, but this is the way it's going to be because this is the right thing to do.
Maha, same question on the,
Can you repeat the question?
the support. I mean, today help center, you cannot function without making sure that you have the right kind of support from different government entities, whether we're talking licensing, permits, what have you, and especially you become more or less like a medical center. So how do you see the relationship right now, and where would you like to see it go?
So Heidi summarized the governmental issue perfectly, so I'm not going to repeat what she said. It's just amazing. So I'm going to go to the private sector and how we are going to address that. I mean, the private sector is my main source of employment. I employ kids over 18 in the private sector. And there we faced a lot of problems, especially in the HR. Because we did, at that time in '97, they had no rights yet. Now they have equal rights. The government facilitated that for us, so, and they protected them once we signed what was it called,
the UN Convention for Emergency.
Yeah, that's it. You see why Heidi is better than me. So that protected me, and that made our life much easier, and it protected the parents as well, because we had to, first of all, we had to convince banks to open accounts for them. The second and most important thing was convincing medical insurance, because as you know, Saudi Arabia demands to have every person has to have a medical insurance, and come and tell the medical insurers to insure a person with intellectual disabilities was a big, or with any disability, is a big deal. So we had to work a lot on convincing them and making it right that they cannot refuse. So about 15 years ago, we convinced all parents to, the minute the boy or girl are babies, they put them in the insurance. So now the insurance companies cannot go back on their words and refuse to insure them, because it's a vicious circle. The insurance, if you can't insure yourself, you cannot be employed, you cannot have, and all of that. So, and they're completely, I mean, the government has done a magnificent job. The private sector is doing also a magnificent job. Our job now is to get them all together, to work together. And that's coming, that's gelling very quickly now. And it's music to my ears when I hear, so-and-so employed so-and-so and so-and-so. So employment is, you hear, in the beginning we used to hear, 1 employed, 2 employed, 3 employed. Now you hear, they have 20 employees, they have 30 employees with intellectual disabilities, or with other disabilities. Then I know with Qaderoon, remember, we had so many problems in getting them to reorganize their working place. The facilities.
Yes.
And the worst part was women coming into the workforce as well, because now the private sector had to accommodate between women, men, and disabled. So that was a big thing. So I was able to inject that they have nothing different than their other peers, the non-disabled. So they are as non-disabled in the workforce as long as they are properly placed. And that's the trick to everything, is if you are properly trained, properly placed, parents are on board with you, or primary caretakers are on board with you, then they should have no problems whatsoever.
Excellent. We're almost out of time, so I will pick on the last point that you mentioned, that we have developed a program called Mu'ama, which is compliance with universal accessibility. And that was a game changer in changing people's attitude. And today, Qaderoon is playing a major role by conducting workshops and training and helping companies get certified on this MOAMA program. So I would like to thank you both so much.
Thank you very much.
It's been an honor and pleasure. Thank you.
لا تنتهي قصص النجاح التي تحققت في دمج الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة في المجتمع وتوفير فرص عمل مميزة ومحفزة لهم. وهنا نحن أمام قصص مختلفة ومميزة مسرحها شركة صافولا التي حصلت على شهادة موائمة والتي أولت اهتماماً كبيراً بتوظيف الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة.
أسست مجموعة صافولا في عام 2010 برنامج مكين لذوي الإعاقة، ومن هناك انطلقت في مسيرتها عبر العديد من الشراكات، منها في عام 2014 أسست المجموعة بالشراكة مع عدد من شركات القطاع الخاص برنامج قادرون، وفي عام 2017 رأت المجموعة بالشراكة الدولية فوقعت اتفاقية مع منظمة العمل الدولية الILO لمعايير ذوي الإعاقة بصفة عامة وشملهم في جهات العمل لدى المجموعة.
حتى أنها اختارت أحد هؤلاء الأشخاص ليكون مدير إدارة الموارد البشرية فيها، حيث أنه يصل يومياً على كرسي متحرك إلى مكتبه ويوحي لزملائه بالكثير من الثقة، خصوصاً أنه يتمتع بثقافة عالية وخبرة كبيرة في مجاله.
توظيف الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة يعكس التزام الشركات الوطنية بمبدأ الشمل والتنوع، بحيث أن النساء ذوي الإعاقة يعطوا فرص أسوة بالرجال، وهذا يعزز مبدأ الشمل والتنوع. الأمر الآخر، كثير من الأبحاث أثبتت أن الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة ذو إنتاجية عالية إذا كانوا ضمن بيئة عمل شاملة. كذلك كثير من الدراسات تقول أن الموظفين ذوي الإعاقة بينشروا روح المرح وروح الإيجابية في بيئة العمل، وبالتالي تعزز من الإنتاجية وتعزز كذلك من روح الفريق داخل بيئة العمل.
فقد اختارت الشركة توظيف مجموعة مميزة من الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقات المختلفة، خصوصاً أنهم يتمتعون بمستوى عالي من التعليم والثقافة وامتلاك اللغات، علماً أن البعض منهم يشغلون أماكن حساسة في الشركة.
في البداية كان لي صعوبة، ما كنت استطعت أتكلم لأنه كان أعتبر أنه أشخاص غريبين عني، لكن الحمد لله من بعد ما تعرفت عليهم أكثر وأكثر بدأت شوية تكلمت معاهم، بدأت أتصاحب، كلهم بيوروني طريقة الحياة، فحسيت أنه مساوي للجميع، ما حسيت أنه أنا شخص مختلف عنهم.
الموظفين كلهم طبعا ساعدوني ووقفوا معايا وفهموني كيف طريقة الشغل، كيف طريقة العمل، وكيف تنجز العمل حقك.
عمري ما حسيت اني انا مختلف عن زملائي تماما او اني انا شخص من ذوي الإعاقة، عمري ما حسيت هذا الإحساس الحقيقة. كلهم متعاونين وهذا سبب من أسباب نجاحي في العمل حتى الآن.
ولازم واحد يثبت وجوده، انت معاك بس عندك عقلك شغال، امورك طيبة، تقدر تبني المجتمع، تقدر تساعد في انتاج الشركة، تقدر توقف زيك زي اي انسان في العالم. لازم تكون منتج المجتمع.
ولا هناك لا فرق من ذوي الإعاقة أو من غير ذوي الإعاقة، يعني نحن واحد في مجتمع واحد، وإن شاء الله حنوصل لما يصبو إليه مجتمعنا ككل.
أن ندعم هذا التوجه بالعلم وتطوير المهارات وبتحسين الأداء. يجب أن نكون مميزين في كل شيء نقدمه، فبالتالي لابد من التطوير والتحسين المستمر.
وأخيراً يحق لنا أن نقول مع الجميع:
معاً قادرون.
معاً قادرون.
معاً قادرون.
معاً قادرون.
معاً قادرون.
معاً قادرون.
ذوي الإعاقة لهم الحق في الحياة العملية، حيث ندرك أهمية العمل على توفير بيئة عمل مناسبة لهم ومحفزة على العمل. وقد رأينا في قادرون أنه من المهم جداً تمكين أصحاب الأعمال على دمج الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة كأعضاء متكافئين في القوى العاملة، وتقديم الإرشادات والتدريب وأفضل الممارسات لأصحاب الأعمال.
صراحة احنا كشركة اليوم نطلع على ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصة انه عندهم مهارات مختلفة عن الاشخاص العاديين، بحيث انه بيكون مميز ولله الحمد بامور مختلفة، من التركيز، من اتقان العمل، من انهاء العمل بالوقت الصحيح، التزامه في العمل بشكل عام بيكون بشكل كبير افضل من الموظف العادي. فاحنا اليوم نطلع انه دعم لهم، هم كمان اشخاص ذوي احتياجات او ذوي اعاقة خاصة صحيح، ولكن عندهم مهارات كثير كبيرة ممكن احنا نستغلها فيها. بالفعل هذا الموجود، يعني لما بتتعامل معهم في الوضع الطبيعي عم بتشوف هذا الحكي على ارض الواقع، انه فعليا الشخص ذوي الاعاقه عنده اتقان للمهارات وشغل رائع جدا عم بيطلع منه.
حسب رؤية 2030 للمملكة العربية السعودية، هناك دور كبير للمجتمع في تغيير النظرة السلبية السابقة لذوي الإعاقة، وذلك من خلال إعطائهم الفرصة الكاملة في دمجهم في سوق العمل.
حرصهم على النجاح في تأدية أعمالهم التي يتولونها في الشركة، إضافة إلى نظرتهم المتفائلة بالحياة.
توظفت عن طريق HR ولي 4 سنوات فاين. الحمد لله تعامل طبيعي زي أي موظف فاين. إعاقة عن طريق خطأ طبي برجلي. والله ما شاء الله كل شيء متوفر الصراحة، إذا نبغى شيء أو حاجة ما يقولوا يساعدونا وينفذونا اللي نبغاه تقريبا يعني.
شغال في الإدارة المالية، محاسب رواتب، والحمد لله تمام. يعني أنا العمل بالنسبة لي تمام، ما في أي مشاكل. يعني مهما كان الإعاقة اللي عندي أشوفه شيء عادي، الحمد لله الأمور طيبة، ما في أي ملاحظات. اللهم الشركة ما شاء الله تبارك الله ما قصرت، وفرت لنا يعني المجال سواء بالمكاتب أو الطريق، والحمد لله كله تمام.
إعاقة حركية بسبب شلل الأطفال. الحمد لله الشركة مسهلة كل ومهيئة جميع السبل والطرقات والأمور لتسهيل حركتهم. بالعكس وجدت فريق متعاون ومساعدني وبيئة عمل جذابة، وساعدت في اندماج الوظيفي.
ويعتبر توفير بيئة عمل ملائمة في طليعة الأولويات، خصوصاً أن الأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة قادرون على العطاء بشكل كبير، ويتميزون بحب العمل والالتزام سعياً إلى النجاح والتميز.
بقول لهم إنه بالعكس، أنتوا أصحاب همم، أنتوا ناس قادرين على إنكم تغيروا المجتمع للأفضل، وأنتوا ناس إحنا نعتمد عليكم بكل ما نعطيكم إياه من مسؤوليات، لأنه أنتوا أشخاص قادرين على تحقيق المستحيل.
وفي النهاية يمكننا القول أن هؤلاء الأشخاص هم قادرون على النجاح.
معاً قادرون.
معاً قادرون.
معاً قادرون.
This year we have partnered with a company based in organization based in London, which is a non-profit organization called Purple Space. And so they created a campaign that will happen on the 3rd of December called Purple Light Up, where it's over a 24-hour period of time. It starts in New Zealand and ends in Los Angeles, passing by the whole world, including Saudi Arabia. And we have 1 hour where we project our work in Saudi Arabia, and especially that is led by Qaderoon and its partners and associates. So the idea behind this is that it will create awareness about people with disability, and it is expected to be viewed by at least 20,000 people in the 5 continents. And we're very proud to be partnering with Purple Space in this event.